Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday night, so it's time for Arkansas Motorsports Magazine's Tuesday Night Tune-Up. And tonight, we are just outside of Benton, Arkansas, at the race shop of Tim and Landon Crawley, local area sprint car racers. And like I said, introduce everybody now. Well, like I said, we got our co-host Heath Tate, Tim Crawley, and Landon Crawley. And again, I'm Bill Gilkey for Arkansas Motorsports Magazine's Tuesday Night Tune-Up. And we want to thank our sponsors, Chambers Bank, with 28 locations throughout Arkansas. Skyline Buick GMC up in Joplin, Missouri. If you're in the market for a car, there's no easier way to buy these days than on the internet with Skyline Buick GMC. Kevin Rogers at KR Performance Fuels. Also Shaw Race Cars. And we also want to thank True Grid Auction Company, Arkansas's #1 online auction service. Heath, what kind of auctions have they got going on this week? Is there one currently going on?
They've got one going on right now, but next week I think they've got more.
Oh yeah, there's several auctions coming up next week. So check out Arkansas's #1 online auction service. It's True Grid Auctions up in Dardanelle, Arkansas. And we'll flip it over now for the Western Petroleum's segment, where to Heath Tate's weekly racing weather report.
Well, it's been that way. Raining every week, it seems like. They raced at Plumberville this week. Got some good racing there. Diamond Park got to race. I-30 wasn't racing this week.
Any winners you want to talk about?
Well, Keaton, actually last week he was on the show and he won both places, Plumberville and Diamond Park, in the mods.
Old timer won, Donnie Barnes.
Donnie, yeah. And West Plains.
Yeah, they're legit.
They were up at West Plains are legit. They raced.
Richie Tosh won a super stock race on Friday night.
There, and yeah. So
anything coming up you want to touch on?
I talked to Tim that y'all went out to
Lake
of the Ozarks and ran because
we did not
because of the rain around this area. So not knowing what was going to be going on.
Also want to remind everybody, you know, to remember that coming up this year, we're going to name the Motorsports Person of the Year.
Right.
You know, for the state of Arkansas, so that'll be coming up late in the year. We hadn't talked a lot about that, but you know, our committee's paying attention to what's going on in the motorsports world of Arkansas, and thanks to Chambers Bank, we'll be presenting the Arkansas Motorsports Person of the Year for 2021. So
right.
we may be sitting here with a winner and just not know it at this time. So. All right, well, we'll get into tonight's show. And Heath, I'll kick it over to you and let you get started here and work these two gentlemen over tonight.
Well, we'll start with Landon first.
All right, we're going to start down here.
We're going to start down there on that end this week. You know, we usually ask everybody, Landon, how they got started racing, and that's, I guess, what we'll start with you on how you actually got started driving this sprint car back here.
Well, I originally started racing flat cars. I raced flat cars for about 2 years, then moved up to micros, raced micros for 3 years, and this is my second year in sprint car.
Okay.
So how did you like the flat car racing? How was that?
They were fun, but.
And how old were you? How old were you? You're 13 now, I understand.
Yes, I was 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Somewhere around there, but they were fun, just not fun enough. I had to go somewhere else, so.
You wanted to go faster?
Yeah, I wanted to go faster, so moved up and got further, and this is where I ended up.
So
and doing very well at it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. You know, every week we go somewhere and we're talking to somebody, and it seems like people have been to I-30 or something like that, his name comes up. Have you seen Tim's boy race?
Yeah.
You know, that's something that we get asked quite a bit.
What you know, you race the go-karts, and we have to remind people that go-karts, a lot of people don't realize they're actually a race vehicle. And then you went to the micros. What was it like stepping from the go-karts to the micros?
It was a big step. Just I had to start at the back whenever I first started. I was too young really, but I was 9 then, so it was a good start. They were fun, but I just needed to go faster.
Aunt Tracy wouldn't let you
No,
start
Aunt Tracy wouldn't let
on
me
your
race.
draw, would she?
Well, was it a need to go faster, or was it need to outrun your dad?
Well, both. But faster's the main reason.
So are you finding the speed in the sprint car that you're looking for?
Yeah, I definitely think I developed the more I race, but not quite where I want to be. But I'm definitely getting better. I can tell.
What when you're sitting down in one of these sprint cars here, tell the people at home that are watching what it's like when you sit down and you get pushed off and you get it started and you're out there pacing around for the start of the race. You're 13 years old, and I'm gonna, Tim, how old were you the first time you sat in a sprint car?
21.
It was 90, so yeah, I was right around 2021.
Okay, so but he had
I
never-
can't imagine it. I mean,
So-
it's got to be.
So what's going
A
through
rush.
what's going through your mind?
Well, you get some butterflies in your stomach. You overthink a lot sitting in staging, but usually right around whenever they push you off, you kind of clear your mind a little bit and focus on what you're doing.
So take us through a race. Take us through a heat race. Again, that's the first race of the night, and you're out there and you're parading around the green flag, and the light comes on. What's going through your mind?
Not the
then?
heat where you and Rick collided.
Yeah, let's not do that
Skip
one.
that one.
I don't know. I usually just clear my mind. I just like to focus on what to do and where to go, who's in front of me. I just like to focus, really.
And as you're out there passing other sprint cars, are you looking ahead, or are you focused on the car in front of you, or are you looking further down the track?
Really both. You have to pay a lot of attention to your surroundings and what's around you, but more of who's around me than what's in front of me.
How often, when you got started in one of these, did you lean on him a lot? Asking questions, or did you just kind of do this on your own? Because, I mean, you've got the best person around right now to bounce ideas off of. There's no doubt about that in a sprint car, so.
Yeah, I ask a lot of questions. Now I've started I can answer them myself a little bit more, but yeah, I still ask questions a lot now too, but yes, I do.
And did he come to you and say, hey, you're doing this wrong, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, or
Yeah,
did he let you learn on your own?
He tells me what I'm doing wrong
Okay.
and when I'm doing stuff right, yeah.
And you've been in one of these enough now, you're doing that back to him.
Back to
right?
him?
Well, now we got to race each other, so I can't help him.
Mom gets tired of us. Sometimes I think we both key in and do it because we know we're poking at her, so it's actually fun. But
Was there something that just stood out after you finished your first race in one of these that you remember? Was there something about the race that just stands out in your mind?
Well, my first race in a sprint car, I did a lot better than I really thought it was. It was a big race. There were 60 or so cars there, and I made the A both nights, and I ran mid-pack a lot better than I thought I would. So
And that's
that
phenomenal.
really stood out for me.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
was that Wichita Falls was your first?
And then Memphis the next week. No, the next week wasn't. so good.
Mom, and I get the second guessing myself too. I mean, as a rule of thumb, you would think you would go just at the extreme local level to a small show, and I've seen that go both ways. I've seen you go somewhere, and I'm not uplifting or degrading anyone, but sometimes you can go to just a small weekly show somewhere, and there's a lot of new people there, and there is what a lot of people relate to as some squirrels or squirreliness, or when sometimes you can go to a big race and it's all people that's been racing a good while. Sometimes it's just as well it's going to be a faster atmosphere, but that group of people are going to be straighter, a little more predictable, and not so much wildness going on. So that really can go both ways. Yeah, the pace can be faster, the cars can be faster, but they're more experienced drivers, and sometimes it's easier to jump into a pool of those guys than it is to just go to a smaller weekly show somewhere and you've got wild ones all around you. You know, so that can go both ways. When we took off to take him to that 305 show in Texas, it was kind of a little bit of the COVID thing was going on too, and we were limited on our options where we could go at that time. And I said, you know what, let's go. Now, I felt like it's pretty good ways over there. It's a 6-hour drive to go for our first race, but it's a different atmosphere for me too, because I've always sat in a car myself instead of having to sit there and watch him. And you know, I'm playing a crew chief role, you might say now, so I'm having to figure out him and what he likes, and because absolutely what I would like in the car may not necessarily work or suit him. So I'm having to adjust to all that and make adjustments according. But he's new too, so I've second guessed him a few times. You know, he's told me, "Oh, there's something wrong with the steering," and I'm like, "You sure this, that, and that?" Well, comes find out a few times he's already spot on. He's catching on to these things pretty quick.
That I was going to ask. I mean, I know the seat different with y'all two for sure, but how do y'all have the difference in driving style? I mean, when you set the car up,
Well,
I mean, when he comes to you and says, "Dad, this it's bad loose," it's
Right.
and it may not be bad loose to you, but
well, that's been a tough deal for us to learn together, and that's the neat part about it. Can be harder when it's family. You know, I could almost take a stranger and talk to them different than you can your kid,
Right.
and then your kid's going to talk to you different. You know, come on, Dad. You know, that's definitely an element that's different. But initially, because I saw it in him in go-karts, I always thought, I'm like, he likes a freer, a looser vehicle than I typically do. I saw that in go-karts, but in loose, if you can drive a loose car, you're typically faster.
Right.
And loose is free, and rolls, and it's quicker a lot of times, but you still have to find that sweet spot of what you're looking for, what makes you comfortable, and what you like. But early on, I kept telling myself, in my mind, I'd look at a racetrack, I guess a setup, and I'd put it toward the car and I'd back off just a little to keep him a little freer, thinking that's where he up here wants to be. Well, I keep finding out now, as time goes on, I'm seeing that I honestly think we could swap race cars, same setup, I still think he'll be fine. I think I'm getting closer to setting him up almost identical to the way I would. And he's adapting, he seems to be doing fine. Because he don't know what he's looking for, really. I mean, he does, but he doesn't, to some degree. But he's been pretty good at, he listens well, and I tell him to do stuff, he does it. When I tell him open your entry up or try high and down, and he seems to pick up on it well. And the nice thing is when I've been wrong in something I've told him to do, he seems to figure that out quick. He doesn't just keep, and I miss,
Right.
I can't drive the car from the pits. I just give him my best advice, and if it's wrong, I just hope he doesn't keep over and over doing it wrong. Because I miss all the time. But he's been good at, okay, Dad's deal didn't work, and he instantly changes and goes to adapting to it. So it's all a pretty interesting deal. I drove for Mike Ward for 10.5 years, and it was really crazy there because Mike got out of the seat because of some medical issues, had to have a surgery and whatnot, and it was going to be a temporary deal. And immediately it turned into a full-time ride. And the crazy thing about it is the first night I got in his car, he asked me a million questions, going into the deal. How you want the car set up? What do you want to do here? What do you want to do there? I said, I tell you what, you've been wicked fast. It's been all I can do to outrun you all these years. I don't want to even know what you're doing the first night I race the car. I just want to sit in the seat and go. And it was unreal how well I felt at home, just bam. So, when you get into those, and then that his deal with me and him was just like me and him now. Not that I'm his kid, but it's same type deal. You've raced all these years yourself and you know what you like, but you don't have any idea if it's gonna work for someone else.
Right.
But so far, it's been, I worry more. I put a lot more stress on myself, you know, because I don't want to make mistakes. You know, I want everything as right as I can get it, even more so for me to get it. And it's a lot harder on me to prepare for him.
Sure.
It really is.
Which brings us to the Shaw Race Cars of Batesville, Arkansas's question of the week. And it goes to Landon here. How much pressure is it on you being his son and out there racing?
I don't really think there's much pressure really.
Because I mean, let's be honest. He is the king of sprint car racing for the state of Arkansas the last several years, and do you feel any pressure, or do you feel comfortable that you have someone like him behind you?
I'm pretty comfortable with it. I like having him behind me. It helps me a lot, really. My car will always be almost perfect at all times, really. There's never really any pressure.
And that's good.
Yeah.
Because, you see a lot of youngsters come up through the sport who have successful fathers in racing, and I've had them tell me that sometimes the pressure trying to, live up to, their father can be overwhelming for them. And that's good that you're handling this in the fashion that you are.
I've tried to be pretty level with, you might say, the coaching end of it. I don't, I say this to people from time to time. I learned it years ago. You just don't earn respect with disrespect. If he's willing to pony up, we'll use that word, and get in that car, that's a big step in itself, especially at his age. So I respect that. And if he come in, and I think he knows this, but if he come in and said, I'm not comfortable running that fast right against the wall, I'm a little scared of that. I'd respect that. I'd rather just be honest with me. I'll be honest with you, because I can't. We've got to stay on that page in order for us both to get better. And if he's not being honest with me, then we're done. I've got to know where he sets in his mind and the way he feels, and then we can progress with that. If he don't tell me, or he's not telling me straight, then we're doomed. And I feel like he knows that. But he also, we bark at each other. Races are over. Especially, now we're racing now a lot. It's inevitable. This year, every heat race, we've been side by side. Well, no, heat races, he started on the front, I keep starting on the back. And he keeps going to the draw table, and this keeps happening. So we got to, maybe I need to look. I'm going to go draw. Yeah, the next time we race together, I'm going to the draw table.
There seems to be
something
going on here.
But it's almost like it's inevitable now. We're racing together now a lot, and we're in the same heat race almost every night. He starts on the front, and us going on the back.
And that's the question right there. Do you race him any different than you race anybody else?
We haven't had, the other night, we possibly would have run some more laps side by side. We had a B main come up. Neither one of us made the show at Memphis a couple weeks ago through our heats, and we both end up in the B, and I look up and we're front row together. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be good. And everybody asked me, did you let him win that? You let him win that? All I said is if it would have been an A main, I would have moved on the track. But I knew the crowd was there watching. Everybody's getting into it. When we took off, I took the top. I knew he was on the bottom. And I said, I'm going to run the top as hard as I can, but I'm not going to move. I'm not going to try to block it. It was just a B main to get into the A. And the crowd went crazy. He got by me right at the end. I got pinched with a lap car, and he got by me, and he won. And everybody said, did you let him win there? You give it? I said, in the B main, I've never let anybody win anything, I don't think. But if that would have been the A main, I'd have left the top. I'd have moved. I just wanted to make a good race out of it, and it was fun. But it is a little nerve-wracking because like the other night, we were in Louisiana at the Rev, and we started right in front of me. And it's your kid that Yeah, that's definitely in your head. I mean, you just, but at the end of the day, I'm still there to do a job. So, of course, he told me, I don't know what all he said, hitch on to me and hang on or something, you know, we'll go to the front of all this. I don't know what happened. I went to the first corner and I never saw him again. So I went on and I never saw him again.
If I'd have been you, I'd have said the same stuff.
So I don't know if he just moved over and let me buy or what. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's definitely different. It's fun. But it is different when it's your kid. You know.
Well, what's it like to go to a world famous track like the Riverside International Raceway and get a win over there?
It's cool, but
With all the history behind that facility.
it's cool, but as much as I've raced there pretty much as long as I've been racing other than go-karts. So it's pretty much, not saying that I got there to win, but it's pretty much normal to race there now.
That's something too, you know, you bring that up, these kids just don't, I mean, I think he knows, but he doesn't know. And when you go back and look at Memphis, all the, you know, your hooker hoods and how many people have come from Memphis, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Swindells and Mike Ward, Terry Gray, I mean, all these people.
Bobby Davis.
Yeah, there's just tons of drivers that grew up and kind of cut their teeth at the ditch, you know. And so there's a ton of people, you know, that they love or hate the place, you know. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I hated it for years. ASCS put it on a national schedule one year for the first time. I'm like, oh, I gotta go over and run a points race, you know, because it's changed. It's used to, it was so wet, it's so greasy, and it can stay literally in a greasy form from start to finish. One of the only tracks I've probably ever been to in my life capable of doing that. But you could go over there and, man, you go broke on your tear-offs. I mean, just the mud at midnight, that come about for a reason. Now, you know, things have changed, and the guy that's working the track over there, they do let it get slicker, and on nights, if there's a curb against the wall, a little bit on the bottom, and the whole center's hard, man, it's as racy as it gets. But they, you know, miss every now and then. Everybody does that, but the ditch has changed a lot. But again, I don't think he really understands the amount of people and the history. It's
And
one of
it's
the
not-
top, oldest tracks
No,
running in
it's
the
not
country.
just him, it's, you know,
Oh, it's that whole
the
generation.
whole generation.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and hopefully at some point in time in their career, they'll do a little research, come to the realization of how important racetracks like that. You know,
Well,
still
he's
are.
got to see some things just in traveling around. I went a couple of years ago and they had a big 305 race that kind of replaced, you know, after the Clausen deal, Belleville replaced that. It kind of, I don't know, kind of a bad taste in people there in their mouth as far as Clausen's death and all, but they replaced it with a 305 show. A bunch of cars, you know, quite a few cars. He didn't run it. I've run it twice, but there's a midget museum there in Belleville, Kansas, and you know, I've took him through those deals, and he gets to see a lot of old pictures, and you know, he's with, of course, it's his cell phones that do it, but he's got names and knows stuff that I'm busy down here with nuts and bolts, and he's looking at everything. He can tell you this car owner and there, and who run where at the little 500, and he keeps up with all that, and I don't. But as far as history goes, I mean, he's seen, I think, more than a lot of kids his age, just because of our travels where we've been.
And that's good. That's good.
I hope so.
And while we're on history, let's go back in time and talk about how Tim Crawley got started.
Similar to him, you know, I had an uncle, a great uncle, that was, you know, like a second father to me, and he, you know, he bought me toys. Him and his wife never had kids, and I fell into kind of a child for him. And I'm not gonna lie, he spoiled me, you know. Who wouldn't take it? It just become a mini bikes, dirt bikes, go-karts playing in the backyard, just what I call nuts and bolts, you know. He had to start an alternator shop, and he had me tearing them things down at 5 or 6 years old, you know, paying me $1 for every one I took apart, put in wash vats. So that's how it started. you're in the backyard, and he took me to races, you know. I think I made one way back. I think I actually saw a race at the old Warren, old Heaver Springs track up there by the dam. Just several different places early on. And then next thing you know, go-kart pops up at the house. I'm back there setting up old tires, going around and around in the dirt with it. And next thing you know, we're racing there at the county line, racing go-karts. And like we talked about earlier, you know, on one of your other shows, it was Wendell Wallace, Cody Gardner's dad, you know, Johnny and Pete and Logan, and just that wad of guys, you know, and we all kind of, I think I come in just a year or so, maybe a little bit later than like Pete, and some of the others come in even after me, like Eric Sandage and a lot of those guys, and that's just kind of how it all started. It was go-karts, and then moved on to, it just quickly moved right into cars. Got the first car when I was 84, limited lake model, and attempted, my first deal was supposed to be, in my mind, we were shooting for a sprint car initially, just first. Well, we had sold all the go-kart stuff, and like I say, everybody left the go-kart, abandoned the go-kart track at the same time. Logan left, I left, Butler left, we all moved the cars almost at the exact same time. So the go-kart track was thriving and we were all there to boom, we were all gone. And the first deal was supposed to be Johnny Suggs was at Little Rock, and I was a fan of his because I could come up after the races and he was friendly to me. So I liked, there was 77 was his number, and I had 77 on my go-kart. Just at a young age, he was kind of my sprint car guy. I liked him. Well, Johnny was getting older and not racing probably quite as much as he once was. Well, anyway, he was going to sell, and we had worked out a deal. The next weekend, he was going to come. He was towing with a van, just like a good times leisure type van. He was going to come and unhook, and we were going to get the deal the next weekend. Well, somebody got killed that weekend out here. I can't remember who it was, but you know, wasn't cell phone technology. You had to wait on the paper. But Monday, Tuesday, when it come out, my aunt told us there was no race car coming in the house, driveway, nothing. And so, man, I was beside myself. The go-karts were gone. Everything was sold, and I was told no race car at all. So my uncle told me, he said, calm down, we all live here, we gotta get, I said, okay, well, we pushed and pushed. Well, it turned into talking her into, what if we just don't get a sprint car and we get them? She wasn't at the races all the time. She was familiar. She wasn't a dummy to them. She knew the cars that were the most dangerous ones. So it turned into a limited late model. Then it took me, that was like 84. And then that desire to be in a sprint car was still as strong as ever. I couldn't figure out how I could get it done. And so in about 89, I was messing around doing some motocross on four-wheeler stuff myself and driving for Buddy and Mary in Pine Bluff. And I accumulated in time a lot of motocross four-wheeler stuff and built a homemade enclosed trailer. And I told myself, I said, you know, if I sell every bit of this, I'll have about this much money, and that'll be a start to, I made up my mind. I said, if it takes me 2 years, I'm gonna put a sprint car together. The minute I started doing it, and I bought a car, I bought my first used chassis and body from Pete Buck. We're over there, and we were friends, you know, back in the day, and I'm over there, and if you labeled something, I mean, this is the Sanford and Son part of me, he made mention, and he probably regretted saying it in front of me because it come back on him. But he labeled this car junk. He's like, this car won't work, it's this and it's that. Well, in my mind, that means it's cheap. It's going to be cheap. If it's junk, it can't be worth much. So I let him get the car all taken apart and it's sitting over there. And in my mind, I said, I'll wait. And I come back and I told Pete, I said, that junk car, I'd like to have it. So anyway, that's how it all started.
And what type of chassis was that?
It was a no. It's that blue and pink with those pink numbers on it. I think it was a Gambler, I
I
believe.
mean, that was a popular car.
Oh, yeah.
Back during the.
Yeah, Gambler was really big there for a while. I think it was a Gambler, if I remember right. But anyway, that was how it all started on the sprint car side. And then I continued to drive for the people in Pine Bluff. 1 or 2 years there, I drove both every Saturday night.
And you were very successful in the sprint car and, you know, the late model, the limited late model, whichever was classified back then.
And the limited late model deal got cut really quick. I can tell you a funny story there. We got that limited late model, and I'd only run a few races. And we were at Little Rock, Kenny Clifton owned the track back then. And I knew a lot of these guys from just watching them race. But now I'm in the seat on the track. Well, right before a feature one night, somebody had come around and said, just pull out on the track and follow suit. Just do what we do. And I'm really lost. Well, what's fixing to happen here? Well, they were going to strong arm Kenny. They were going to blackball him per se and just protest for purse money. But we all pull out on the track, stop on the front straightaway and kind of get out of the cars and they're like, what are y'all doing? Somebody, like I say, I'm just sitting there being quiet. I don't have a dog in this fight per se. But what am I to do? Whoever was ramrodding this protest say something to Kenny, and next thing I know, they yell for security and police, and he told them, he said, no, these cars are going to leave. Either you're going to drive them off the racetrack, or they will be towed. And it backfired on them big time, and they cut the class. He said, I'm not tolerating this, and they cut it. So then BB continued to run limited late models, but Little Rock was running late models. Well, the funny thing is, I grew up from little bitty, riding a bicycle down to Benny Bowers, lived right down the road from us. I'd ride my bike down there, and my uncle would tell me, you gotta be back at 8 o'clock, whatever it was, 9 o'clock. I'd sit down there till 2 minutes before, and then just pedal like hell and get back home, you know. But I'd go down there, you know, and watch Benny and Mike and all them guys work on the 87 car. And that's actually how I was 87 for all those years. What happened, you get the limited late model, and Little Rock was pretty loyal to whomever to keep a number. If you raced the car there, that number was yours. I roll in there with 77 to use that number on my limited late model, and they said, you can't use that, it's Benny Dixon. I said, Benny's not even racing. They said, no, it's his number, you gotta find something else. So now I can't run my number, and well, Mike had moved on from Benny racing for James A. Rogers and I don't remember exactly, you know, like the 106 car, the GRT house car. And well, here they cut the class. I can't run my number. I wanted to run 77. And so next thing you know, I went down to Benny's one day. I said, Benny, I said, this just come to me. Would you care if I run 87? Because it's not out at the track anymore and hadn't been in a good while. He said, no, I don't care. And it's like Mike had moved on, so now me asking Benny that, man, he rode a moped all the time. One of his daughters lived around the corner from us, and he's always passing right by. And he saw I had that car there, and next thing you know, man, I bet 2 days a week, he's up there, but I didn't know nothing about a V8 motor. I knew nothing. I'd come out of go-karts. And he's up there helping me, showing me how to run valves and how to maintenance things and helping me with the motor, and that's how the 87 number come about. That's how that's how all the progression kind of happened.
So you always had the desire from a young age to be in a sprint.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've always wondered.
Yeah, I would have never.
I always wondered what made the transition from the late
I would have
models
never
to the sprint.
drove the late model deal at all. Had the accident in Little Rock happened in Miami, stopping, delaying. Because that just wasn't where I wanted to be. And I wanted to race, don't get me wrong, but this is what I fell in love with when I was a little bit. This is what I wanted to do.
And over the years, we've seen him in a modified, and got out of the sprint car for a little bit. I don't know that you really got out of it. You still had it, but you were,
Yeah, one
you
time.
know, you
Yeah,
chased the modified deal there for just a little bit, but that
And we
was,
talked about that a little bit
Yeah.
earlier, it was a money thing. There was quite a few years that I paid my bills with pay windows, so, you know, the sprint car's there for a little bit. All this stuff kind of goes in trends.
Fluctuates, yeah.
Yeah, it goes up and down, and then Patrick's dad actually asked me to run the Alltel race. You know, it's 100,000 win, and he said, hey, we got an extra car, you wanna run that Alltel deal? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. I said, but we shouldn't think that we're just gonna go up there. I said, I can't just jump in a car and go to a big show like that. So let's run some races prior to that. And Quentin ends up buying a new Shot Rock car, and it turned into not just that race. We got to racing it quite a bit, and had some pretty good luck with it. And I think I got to topless a couple of times, cow patty deal, and won some stuff, you know, out Oklahoma here. But you know, I sat there and looked at the sprint car thing, and we're racing for $13.50 back then. I think it's what it paid weekly here, and some of the shows were 2,000 or 3,000. But I'm sitting there looking at modifieds. It's 5,000 in Clinton, Oklahoma, 5,000 at the cow patty, 100,000 there. And at that time, they did those 6 races. I think I got one of those. That salute to 6. They had 6,000 win shows at Batesville. We fell in there and won one of those. And I mean, the money was just too good not to do it. Now, would I a lot rather have been racing that? You bet.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, racing's racing, and that kind of purse money, I just had to do it.
at that point in time, how big a difference was it getting out of the sprint and jumping into modified?
Oh, that's just two totally different worlds.
Right.
Some of the stuff is a little bit relevant, but a modified is just, you know, an over horsepowered, well, with an open motor. I mean, that's an overpowered ice skate. You know, you have no tire and a lot of motor. Where this, you've got everything. These are just glued to the ground. The driving style and the mental state of the two cars is where the difference is. The relevance of being on dirt, sideways grip, traction, chasing lines, that's all the same. But the mental, to me, the mental issue in a sprint car to any door car, whether it be a late model, modified, or any of that, is where the big difference is. There's so much in your mind that goes on in these cars. Stock cars, modified, late model, people will crowd you or dive in there and push on you or in a heartbeat. These cars, you can't drive them that way. You can be the one flipping just as quick as the guy, the aggressor, or it don't matter which side of the fence you're on, you can just, the person it can go bad for you quick either way. And that's what, you know, years ago out here at Little Rock, Mike Ward would roll into the pits, and he had 90% of the field beat when he pulled up to the pit. And it was for a lot of reasons, because for one, yes, he was insane fast, but he also had everybody, he was in everybody's head, kind of like a bloomer
And,
situation.
you know, and a lot of
He's
times
just-
people don't understand the psychological aspect
Right.
of racing.
But back to kind of what you're talking about, the relevance or the similarities, the real difference is if me and you are going down the straightaway together, but you kind of know me and what I'm tend to do, if I'm not willing to lift on entry for no reason, and we're in one of these, you're going to give me the corner. You're probably not going to even attempt to mess with me. You're going, oh, he's coming. If we're in a door car, you might not care. You might dive in there and say, you know, I'm just going to try to mash my way in there, and I'm not letting him by. So your mental situation and just the way you go at these cars is what the big difference is. The actual driving and what you do for looking for lines and how you drive, it's not that much difference. It's just more of a mindset and the fact that we can bang lightly and both of us just take off.
Because what, you know,
That's the
reason
big
I'm
difference.
asking that, because a lot of people that run sprint cars have drove other stuff. But there's not a whole lot of people that drove a door car and a modified that have jumped up and drove a sprint car. You know what I'm saying? It's the other way around, you know, like you.
Yeah,
Go from a
somewhat.
sprint car and kind of go down because,
But
you know,
I actually
there's
think
lots
it
of,
helps. I really do, because one thing I relate to, like so many sprint car people, especially wing sprint car guys, they're just so used to filling a car with that wing handle pulling the car over. They want this feel. They're so used to it. They've never drove anything stood up on the right front. So the minute the sprint car gets on the right front, they just lose it. They freak out and go, whoa. You know, I've raced cars where, you know, a late model and a modified, you feel like you're riding around the racetrack with the right front on the ground. It's just the way you drive. And you drive them with with the brakes. And these cars, you don't use the brakes, nothing like you do in a door car. You know, all your brake adjustments and brake tuning, you live and die by in a door car. These, not so much. These are more the throttle.
And I hate to ask this question, but I'm going to. But what is it about Tim Crawley that allows him to adjust from car to car to car? And I know that's an unfair question, and I'm not sitting here
No, it's-
wanting you to brag on yourself, but what is it about you that allows you to adjust
Doing it.
from car to car to car? so
Doing
well?
it, just doing it. You know, I was fortunate enough to get to do that. You know, and again, like I said, I think it can actually help you, because there's times in these cars you really need to back off the gas. And it's not as common now as it used to be. Used to, you really had to drive these things, and now with the way the shocks and the tires and everything, these cars have really become stomping steers. You know, when I first started racing them, you really had to chase a line now, and you had to stop and hug the bottom, or, yeah, slide jobs came along, and that's a different subject in itself. But these cars really now, used to, when I started racing them, you dove in a corner, held it flat on the floor, and just bonsai turns and drove it like that, you'd go straight to the back in one lap. Now, that's actually a style. That's just the way you operate. You can literally light them up in the slick and still do okay with that method of driving. And used to, it wasn't like that. And I don't know what to blame on that totally. I think a lot of it's tires. As far as bouncing from one car to the other, I mean, yeah, you've got to have God-given talent to be able to, but I was fortunate enough over the years to get to drive a bunch of different cars. And I mean, I guess at some point, just seat time, you're going to learn how to do it.
I want to real quick touch on, you bought the car off Depot. What was that season like?
I wish I had better records or memory of that. I mean, it was everything you'd probably expect from a first year in a new division of a car. I had car experience, but never a sprint car knowledge per se. But I knew where I wanted to be, so anytime I walked up to the pits or would go over to Pete's house, I might be talking, but my eyes were wide open. I mean, I'm paying attention to what they're doing all the time. So I still had questions, and I leaned on people like Pete and bought used parts, and hey, how Pete and Phil, I mean, they did. Right when I first started, they showed me very honest, good people, so I could trust them. You know, we grew up racing together, so I could just say, hey, I wasn't overly filling them with questions, but when I knew I was stumped or needed to know something, I could always ask them. You know?
my, you know, he asked that one. Mine is, what was it like at that point in time when Mike asked you to drive his car? I mean, that's kind of a,
you had arrived in the
that's
sport?
kind of a big deal right there at that point in time.
He wasn't a car owner that hired drivers. The situation was different than that. Mike's situation was I was at Memphis. All this is, because it's been talked about quite a bit. One of his sponsors come to me. I was standing next to the fence watching the races, and he come to me and he said, hey, Mike's got to have a surgery, and he can't wait till winter. Hip deal, you know, nerve. He's got to have it done. He's going to be out of the car. You know, we really don't know how long, but your name's come up, and this sponsor, he took it in the plural version of we, but he wasn't including Mike. It just being him standing there. He said, you know, we talked, your name come up, would you be interested? And man, that wasn't a hard one to answer at all. Seeing Mike's equipment and how good his car looked and how fast it always was. I didn't even have to hesitate. I was, yeah, I've done it. That was the end of it. This was like on a Saturday night or whatever at the ditch. So Sunday, I'm sitting around the house thinking, and I'm thinking, man, this is how stuff, hearsay gets started. And I don't want Mike to think I've said nothing. So later on that evening, on Sunday evening, I just called Mike. And he answered. I said, hey, Mike, and I go to talk, and before I can even say anything, he's acting like he's mad. He's, wait a minute, Tim, I know, look, yeah. And I'm just thinking, uh-oh. But what it was he was just aggravated with his guy that he didn't come to me and ask me. Is kind of the way I took it. And he said, this is going to happen, and I was going to ask you about it, and he was in the wrong coming to you, but yes. So I'm just thinking, well, that's not a no to driving the car, but what are we looking at here? He said, let me get back with my people, and I got to figure some things out. He asked you too soon. It's kind of the way he said it. I'm like, well, okay. That's not a no, though, so I was still excited. Well, it wasn't long at all. And Mike talked to me, and he said, yeah, I want to do this. I got to have this surgery done. And well, I had told a guy that I'd committed to a big mini sprint race up north. It was in Nebraska or somewhere. Paid like $10,000 in a micro, non-wing. And this guy from Louisiana had already paid entry fees. It was a done deal. So I wasn't going to back out on that guy, but it was also the start of USCS Speed Week, and that's what Mike wanted to do. That's how he wanted to start this deal. And I told Mike, I said, man, I don't want to back out on this guy, I give him my word, and that's fine. He said, when can you, that week, Speed Week started on a Tuesday. He said, can you be in Atwood, Tennessee on Tuesday? I said, I'll be there. And that's how it started. And man, it was, me and Mike, we had one hell of a 10.5 years. I never dreamed that it would be his last time in the seat. It was never intended that way. Mike wasn't a car owner that hired drivers. He was like me with my car. And he just, an unfortunate thing come up, and he had issues he had to have operated on, and he put him out of the seat, put me in it, and man, I'm not lying. It's crazy what we accomplished. We gelled instantly, and you never know racing against somebody what it would be like, because all of a sudden you get in a toter home, you're living with them. You're seeing each other in your underwear in the morning. The world changes, and how I just had no idea how me and him was going to work together. And I'm not kidding. In 10.5 years as a driver in a race car deal, I think he probably got mad at me more than once, but we only kind of had words one time. And it was kind of over a petty deal, but we were having a tough run. We'd had a bad few weeks of racing.
Well, those things do happen.
Me and Mike's a lot alike. We can both be a little hot-headed. And of course, I knew, I'm like, I'm just going to go out of the trailer. He'll calm down. But literally, in 10.5 years, we never had no hard words with one another at all.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to ask in that time frame. No, y'all got along great. So was it one of those deals? Did he, when you first started, did he say, all right, Tim, I want you to drive the car this way, or did he say, hey, Tim, how do you want this car? How do you want me to sit?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because that all kind of went down the first week. Prior to running that Speed Week race, he was asking me some questions about, some mild things maybe about the car, and that's, like I told you earlier, I told him, you just do what you do, and I want to see what it feels like. In the hot lap session, I got in the car, I'm like, oh, this is going to be nice. Everything was tight. And when I sat, Mike is so phenomenally anal about things. I sat in the car and literally everything was perfect. The pedal placement, steering wheel, belts. Literally, I had to do nothing. I got in the car and just felt right at home. We both ran the same type chassis, which I know y'all don't know what it is. It's a reverse arm car. Me and Mike was two of the weirdos in the country. There's very few people that run that type of chassis. And I ran them, Mike ran them, Gary Wright ran them. There's very few people that found comfort in it. And Mike had one, and when I got in that car, I felt right at home. It was easy. Now, the one thing that happened, the first night I drove the car, I led the whole feature, and I got into some lap traffic. I needed to get aggressive to kind of honk my horn some to get by one, and I didn't. I kind of, in my mind, even in that split second, I said, man, I don't want to tear Mike's car the first time I drive it, you know. I just don't want to, it was one of the deals I needed to take a chance. And I kind of backpedaled just a little and didn't do the aggressive move on the lap car, and Wayne Johnson got around. And I run second. And I was mad. I stopped on the front straightaway, and I mean, I'm mad at myself. Because I'm there to do a job now for Mike, you know, and I failed in my mind. I come up, and they're all tickled to death. He's happy, and I'm looking at him like, what are you happy about? I'm pissed, you know? and I told him, I get out of the car and I said, man, I'm sorry. I'm steadily apologizing. I said, Mike, I should have moved it back. I mean, I should, we won this race. I lost it. I said, the car was there, I just screwed up. And he told me, he kind of grinned, he said, there's several more of these race cars in the house. You don't worry about it. And at that point, I thought, I got his back. And the bad part about it, the next night I went and put it bad. I busted my butt real bad in the heat race. So anyway, and then I think the third night of that speed week we won. Should have won the first night. You know, it was my fault that we didn't. But man, it was so. It was just, I was ready to quit myself, doing my own thing. And then that deal come up with Mike, and it just relit a fire in me. Because I knew when I went to his shop, I saw his car, I put a lot of pressure on myself from day one. Because I said, if they're going to work that hard and unload that kind of equipment for me just to show up and race, I'm fixing to give it everything I got.
How many, if you had to guess, how many wins and championships have you won?
And this keeps getting brought up. I really don't know. I mean, I've won, I guess, the ASCS National deal. I won that 3 times. I've won, I guess, a track championship at Little Rock in the ditch. I've won a few bigger shows that mean things to me.
And which would they be?
Short track nationals for sure. And I literally feel like I've had half a dozen of those just ripped from me. I know everybody says that, but you know, me and Mike led what would have been, I guess, our second team for 32 laps, and run over a bolt and cut a right rear tire, and we were checked out on that. That really stung. Had been in the dash and that deal so many times, you know, and gotten wrecked and just had things happen. And it's just, I feel like my name should have been on that shirt 6 times, but I just managed to get it done once. I won a race in Skagit, Washington. It was like a 10,000 win 360 show. Me and Mike won that together. Won just a lot of USCS races together and ASCS races together. No one in particular really sticks out. It's just, now how many, I really don't know.
A lot.
I know Billy that helps Mike said we were over 150 one time with Mike.
That's what I'm saying. That's just from that 10.5-year period right there.
Yeah, we had a few years there, and we could do no wrong. I mean, and that really spoils you, because then you have a bad month of racing and you wonder what's going on. We had several years there that we were absolutely where we wanted to be.
Well, that brings us to the New Vision graphics and sports shirts. Vision for the future heat. And we'll talk about what they're going to do to
Yeah. I guess to start with Landon there.
We talked about me the whole time.
You're in this 2021, this year. What are we looking for Landon to be doing this year and racing here?
I'm not sure. I'm sure just a lot of the same things. I'll run some non-wing races this year, but a lot of the same stuff. I think. I'm really excited for the non-wing stuff though.
More excited in the non-wing than you are with the wing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say something real quick. Why is that? Tell the folks out there why do you enjoy the?
I don't really know. It's just like there's something about it. Something about them is way better than me. I really don't know that.
We practiced 2 weeks ago. I lose track of time. We took this car out to Little Rock and I let him get some laps without the wind, trying to get his feet wet. And then, like I said, that's the car predominantly that we're racing all year. And then Bill Mobbs here, they're the deal they were doing dissolved at the end of the year. And after all that was over, me and Bill, one day I was helping him get some of his stuff situated and back to his hand to sell some things and whatnot. But I asked Bill, I said, would you mind if, because it's kind of hard to designate a non-wing car when you don't have 4 or 5 of them just sitting around, but I asked Bill, I said, would you mind, I don't know how many times we'll race it, it could be 1, 2, or 5, I don't know. I said, but do you care if we take this car y'all were running this year, which I'm talking about this past year? I said, the car y'all were running, do you mind if I take it and get it prepared just to where when the situations arise, can we use it for him some non-wing time? And he said, certainly, go ahead. So that's what we're doing with this one, is we're gonna try to get it, just we've got a deal June the 11th, which is only a week after next. If Dick keeps this up, we're gonna have to put a prop under this thing instead of tires, but, June 11th, they're having what they're calling a no fender Friday at Crawley's Ridge. It's gonna be, midgets, 305 wings, 360 wings, and the Elite Series non-wing. All that's gonna be on Friday night at Crawley's Ridge. So if we can get our eggs all in one basket, we're hoping that possibly me and him both go up there and run the 360 wing car and non-wing both of us. If we can get enough help and get them all there and make it happen, that's what we're gonna shoot
Well,
for.
props to Trent Francis for putting that on.
Pretty unique show. It's unfortunate that we don't get a lot of that in Arkansas, but if people enjoy a lot of open wheel stuff, he's gonna run all those classes in the same night. So it should be a good show.
Well, the same question for you, Tim. What this year? What are we looking for Tim Crawley to be doing?
We don't have Ronnie that I drive for hits. He's not. There's no pressure anywhere here. We're not running for any points. We're not running. We're just 1 week at a time. Especially nowadays with Mother Nature like it is. We just try to get these things, the cars ready as we can, and we just bounce whatever seems right for us at the moment. I know he really wants to do some non-wing stuff, but that's kind of hard for us in a way. There's not a lot of that close to us. The Elite Series has really kicked in and running more and more non-wing stuff, but it's kind of Oklahoma and Texas over in that area. There's some close to us, and I'm going to try to get him in that a little as we go.
Good deal.
As far as a set schedule or what's on the plate for us, we're just definitely going to do the obvious stuff. I'm looking forward to hopefully me and him both being at Wheatley, Missouri at the Hocket. We still got a lot of shows left for us. Ralph Henson Memorial, still to go out here with a lot that we both should be able to run, provided our motors and parts and everything stay intact. Got a show or two at Memphis, Ralph Henson Memorial, with Jesse Hocket. That's kind of the gist of it, other than just scattered show here and there otherwise. That's for sure on our radar, and then we'll dodge rain and see what we can to race.
Well,
No set schedule.
It's been an honor for you to invite us down.
Likewise.
And getting to meet you. We've followed your career for a long time, and we've heard a lot about this young man, and we expect a lot of good things out of him in the future. So it's been
I'm
great
proud
to
of him. I'm proud of him so
let us
far.
know that.
It's just definitely been fun to try to. And then, like I say, I'm as old as I am, and I'm still learning every day. And it's definitely interesting to try to me and him work together and learn together.
That'll be fun. Heath, what's on tap for next week?
Just stand by and watch.
Stand by and watch. I'll see what you're
Kind of been like that every week, and not letting anybody know about the get-go here,
It's a new ploy of yours.
That's right.
Get everybody to tune in on Sunday to see where we're going.
That's right.
But
Or
anyway,
we may let you know earlier in the week.
yeah.
We want to definitely thank. I've got
Hey,
great.
please.
That's what we want you to do.
I've got a great crew that a lifelong friend of mine, Marcus, and then Brad's out of Memphis. And Ronnie's my car owner over at the other shop. Like I said, it's 30 minutes from here, but all that stuff stays over there. And then guys, it's caliber stuff with Mike's deal. Everything over there is spot on and prepared well. And we got a lot of good sponsors, with Bill Nobbs, Michael Vogelpohl with MPB Express, Engler Machine, Butler Heat and Air, Mid-State, the Goodsons out here that will help us. Without all these people helping, it would be impossible for us to do this.
Well, like I said, it's fascinating to get to sit here and listen to you, and I could sit here all night with our production manager, Aaron Gilkey, who, by the way, he's about to give us the old sheep's hook. By the way, Aaron was the May runner-up for Employee of the Month at Arkansas Motorsports Magazine, so congratulations going out to him. But like I said, we want to thank our sponsors, Chambers Bank with 28 locations throughout Arkansas. If you're needing banking needs, check with Chambers Bank. Shaw Race Cars up in Batesville, Arkansas. Skyway GMC of Joplin, Missouri. KR Performance Fuels. True Grit Auction Company in Darnell, Arkansas. Arkansas's #1 online auction company. We also have Fourth Lake Speed and Muffler Shop in Palmerville, Western Petroleum, and Ecky's Door Parts and Accessories. And we'll go ahead and give a shout out to our drag racing counterparts, Prescott Raceway and Centerville Dragway up in Centerville, Arkansas. So keep watching Facebook this week. Like I said, for Heath Day, Tim Crawley, Landon Crawley, and we're getting introduced this week's man of the week.
That big buck.
Buck, he's been with us all night, and we appreciate him appearing tonight as well. So, for Arkansas Motorsports Magazine, I'm Bill Gilkey, and we'll see you from somewhere here in Arkansas next Tuesday night.